NXT starts off with Tatum Paxley as your new North American Women's Champion. Starts off with her cutting a promo. She ends up starting off mentioning, her past, mentioning her constantly relying on friends, her constantly chasing friendships, and thinking that that was the answer to all of her problems, but still felt alone inside. And then she ends up mentioning that at one point she thought that she had to stop being herself and, become a different person due to the outcomes in her life. And then she eventually starts, thanking the fans for following her journey and that she finally found herself. You get Izzy Dame, she comes out, she ends up playing a little vignette packages of the old Tatum Paxley before she even start using, the more like before she even started using all the makeup she does now with like her more like darker goth look. The first time she first appeared at NXT back when she was doing the breakout tournament, teaming with Ivy now, shows a vignette package of that. Basically ends up saying that Tatum Paxley hasn't changed. She's still the same naive, insecure little girl that she always has been, and that she hasn't changed. She's just putting up a facade for all of these people. Then eventually ends up leading into her wanting another title shot. Then you end up getting Sean Spears and Nico. They're ended up surrounding Tatum Paxley. She gets distracted. Izzy Dame attacks her, and then Izzy Dame ends up standing tall with the North American Championship. Later in the show, they end up having a brawl. Robert Stone ended up stopping it, getting security, and then eventually he ends up confirming that it's going to be a steel cage match next week for the Women's North American Championship, which I actually like. I like the idea. I'm cool with it. I was very confused at first because I was like, why are we still continuing this feud? But making the last match, the good thing they added a stipulation. That's one thing I do like. They added a stipulation. So making it a steel cage is going to be very exciting. Plus, I don't think they're going to continue this feud past the steel cage because there was a segment, a quick segment where Tatum Paxley was looking for Izzy, and then she ended up running across Blake Monroe, asking her where's Izzy, and she ended up saying she didn't know. And then Blake Monroe alluded to mentioning that she never lost the North American Championship. So they're clearly teasing something there between her and Blake, which I do think is the correct choice because I think Blake is a good heel for Tatum Paxley. She could do similar things to what Izzy Dame is doing, playing on the emotions, the insecurities of Tatum Paxley. So I think it works out well because I don't see no reason for why Tatum Paxley would lose the North American Championship. It just wouldn't make much sense for her to lose, especially if you're going to have Blake Monroe go after the North American Championship afterwards. Because Tatum Paxley is a babyface, Izzy Dame's a heel. Makes sense for Izzy not to not to get the championship back. That would just be very weird. Plus, Tatum Paxley deserves a reign with the championship, but who knows? Maybe she won't have a reign. Maybe they give it right back to Blake Monroe. Who knows? But overall, I enjoy what they did here. I enjoyed the segment. As much as I do love these two women, I do think this needs to be the last match, though. I do think we're stretching this feud out a little bit too much, but nonetheless, the steel cage match should be an absolute banger because they put on a banger at Vengeance Day, so I'm expecting nothing less in the steel cage match, so I'm very excited for that match. We end up getting a triple threat match between Jasper Troy, Shawn Legacy, and Eli Knight. This was an absolute banger of a match. This was a banger. This was one of the best matches of the year. This was a very amazing match. This match won't get really talked about due to it being NXT, but also due to the three people because the three people aren't that popular. But this was an amazing match. In the middle of this match, Keanu Carver interferes, ends up choke slamming Jasper Troy, puts him through a table, and he ends up staring down Booker T, telling him to have Jasper Troy to stop mentioning his name. So they're clearly going to build something between him and Jasper Troy, which I don't mind. I like what they're doing with Keanu Carver, constantly making him this crash out person that can't be tamed. I like what they're doing that. Plus, they're doing this thing with him and Booker T having some beef because back in LFG, they weren't getting along. Whether or not that's scripted or whether or not it's will, who knows. But they're playing a story with that as well. So I like what they're doing with Keanu Carver. This was a banger match, and the victory ended up being it was two victors in this match because Eli Knight and Shawn Legacy pinned Jasper Troy at the same time. It was a sequence where Shawn Legacy went for a 450. Eli Knight ended up doing a crazy moonsault off the top rope, and they both pinned her at the same time, which I absolutely love. Eli Knight and Shawn Legacy has to be the next face of NXT. I love these two guys so much. Elio LaFleur, Eli Knight, Shawn Legacy, that's your future of NXT right there. They are your next big baby faces, bro. Those are the guys you need to build around. Those are your next guys you need to build around. Them three right there are the next three you need to build around in terms of baby faces. They can easily fill the Javon Evans role with ease. And I know they're more than just high flying guys, but bro, they're just so great. They're gonna fit right in NXT. I would be shocked if none of them get over. Some of them are already getting great reactions right now, so I'd be very shocked that none of them get over. Them three are just amazing. So the NXT men's division is very underrated. People are sleeping on this NXT men's division. It is not bad the way people try to talk about it, man. But this was an absolute banger, and I'm really excited to see what's next for Eli Knight and Shawn Legacy, because those guys are amazing. We get a tag team match between Tavion Heights, Charlie Dempsey versus Birthright with Uriah Connors and Lexis King. This was a fine match. Towards the end of the match, you end up getting Charlie Dempsey ended up turning and betraying Tavion Heights and joins Birthright. They've been telling this story for a few weeks now between Lexis King, Uriah Connors, Ariana Grace, Channing Stacks, all trying to convince Charlie Dempsey. Their faction is basically a bunch of second and third generation superstars of wrestlers, and they're all just forming a faction. That's why they got the name Birthright. It's their birthright to be in the, be in the business, be in the wrestling business. So they trying to recruit Charlie, and Charlie finally aligns with them. I haven't really been mentioning this because this has mainly been more of a TNA thing. Now, I haven't watched TNA in the last like 3 weeks or so, but I know they've been building this faction from TNA for the most part with Channing, Ariana Grace. Ariana Grace is the new Knockouts Women's Champion, which I need to start watching TNA again because Ariana Grace is champion, so I need to start watching because I love Ariana Grace. She's super extremely underrated, and she's being utilized in TNA, so I need to start watching TNA more. But Charlie Dempsey in this faction, I'm not going to act like it's a big deal. I don't mind it. I just like that he's being used because I think Charlie Dempsey is very underrated, very underappreciated. I think he could do big things in NXT if he was booked right. And I do like that he is a heel because Charlie Dempsey is a heel. He's not a babyface. He's a natural heel. Tavion, right decision to keep him babyface in this situation because he is a natural babyface. I don't know what this lead towards, though, because I don't see Tavion Heights getting his revenge. I just don't see it. Maybe Miles Bourne helps him, but I just don't see the point in that. So I don't know what to really think of this, but I only mentioning this because we did get a payoff of some sort. So we'll see how this goes, but I'm not really expecting nothing big out of this faction. But I hope to be proven wrong. We end up getting a Tony D'Angelo promo. I'm not going to go that in depth of this Tony D'Angelo promo. It just basically clarified what I already kind of assumed after Vengeance Day. He basically ends up mentioning, Dark State, mentioning that was one of the reasons why he came back to get revenge on them. Then he eventually leads to the second reasoning, and he mentions the NXT Championship, which is the one thing he has never done. And he basically calls his shot at Joe Hendry, which I'm not mad at, honestly, because as much as I do like the NXT men's division, I don't think that the guys in the picture, well, the guys that are in the men's division aren't ready. Like, as much as I love the Ilya LaFleurs, the Jackson Drakes, the Eli Knight, Shawn Legacy, all of them, right? Keanu Carver, they are not ready for the main event spot. They're cool for the North American Championship. That's great. Or speed title. Let them build. So I'm cool with Tony D'Angelo being in this spot because Tony D'Angelo is a more experienced guy. He's been in this position before. So it makes sense for his character to go after the NXT Championship as well. Plus, he's playing this more like tweener-like role, this new gimmick. So you kind of need to push him in this spot to really take him as a serious threat. So I'm cool with this as well. Plus, you can easily drag Tony D'Angelo in like a Joe Hendry thing for months. Let the other guys, let the younger guys develop until they're ready for that spot to eventually take over whenever it is time. So I like what they're doing here personally. Plus, I like having Ethan Page, Ricky Saints, Joe Hendry, and Tony D'Angelo all in the main event title picture. I like this overall. I'm not gonna say I'm excited, but I am getting more invested in Tony D'Angelo's character. I will say that I am more interested than I was when he first debuted. So we'll see how eventually it's played. I'm not gonna get my hopes up, but I do think this could turn out really good though. We end up getting a singles match between Lainey Reed, Sol Ruka. Next week, we are going to get the triple threat match for the Women's NXT Championship between Jacy Jayne, Sol Ruka, and Zarya. Jacy Jayne wanted, get Sol Ruka out of the picture, so she got Lainey Reed to try to take care of the problem. The typical wrestling trope where the lackey tries to take care of the leader's opponent, but they typically lose. We know the wrestling trope, which is something that, it's a wrestling trope, but it's something that I don't mind because it makes sense in theory. Plus, you don't want the opponent to lose to the lackey. But Lainey Reed keeps impressing me every time she's in the ring. Honestly, bro, whenever Fatal Influence get called up, they all need to get called up. Do not leave none of them in NXT. They all need to be a faction. Honestly, they should not break up. I know they have teased them breaking up every now and then, but no. They should not break up. This should be a faction that should stay together on the main roster. They should not, if they break up, it should be on the main roster. They should stay together. They're too perfect together. Lainey Reed is good. She's ready. She's ready. She really don't need no more seasoning now. She's good at ring. She's a good heel. She's getting good react. Like she got it. She got it personally. Plus, you could slowly build up Lainey with fatal influence on the main roster. This Ruka does pick up the victory, which was as expected. Build her up towards stand and deliver. But I was really impressed with Lainey Reed in this match. Lainey Reed impressed me every single time. So honestly, if they call up fatal influence after stand and deliver, I wouldn't be mad at all. That's a correct choice in my opinion. Lainey Reed deserves to get called up with Fallon and JC Jane because she fits with that group so perfectly, man. So this was a really good match, but very excited to see what happens next week in that triple threat. We do end up getting an announcement. We end up getting a segment with Robert Stone and all the tag teams, and he ends up announcing there's going to be a tag team tournament starting next week to determine the number one contenders for the NXT Tag Team titles against Vanity Project at Stand and Deliver. I think he already announced the teams. He ends up announcing that Shawn Legacy and Eli Knight are going to be a team. He announced OTM, Dark State, Hank and Tank, The Culling, and there's one more team I may be forgetting if I'm not mistaken. But he ends up announcing all the teams that are going to be in the tournament. Who should win that tournament? Honestly, I think OTM might win because they've been building them up for a while now, but they've been building them up towards Dark State, and it looks like they're still going to feud with Dark State, so that could be a separate thing, in my opinion. Honestly, it should be Eli Knight and Shawn Legacy. I think that should be the match. They don't have to beat Vanity Project. Honestly, they could, well, actually, Loki, they could beat Vanity Project, actually, now that I think about it. But Shawn Legacy and Eli Knight in the tag team division, bro, that's your next, you could literally make that your next Nathan, you can make that your next faction right there, in my opinion. Now, they're great on their own, in my opinion, but starting them off as a tag team, build up some momentum, and then eventually do their own thing separately without turning on each other, or you can have them turn on each other in the future, who knows, but I think that's perfect, in my opinion. That would booster up the tag team division, give it an extra body, give it an extra team, and they could put on banger matches with anybody, personally. So I personally like the idea, personally, because the North American title picture is with Miles Bourne as a babyface anyway, and they're both babyfaces, so it doesn't really make much sense for them to really face Miles Bourne unless it's going to be like a, competitive rivalry, a short-term thing. So honestly, I would like Eli Knight and Shawn Legacy to win. But other than that, you probably would just go with Hank and Tank, the more established tag team. They're over with the crowd, so they probably would go there to go with the more safer option for Stand and Deliver. But either way, I'm cool with this decision. I like what they're doing. They've been really booking the tag team division really well these past few weeks. So thank you, Shawn Michaels, for actually putting some investment in your tag team division. So, yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. We finally get the main event, tag team match between Ethan Page, Ricky Saints versus Joe Hendry and Miles Bourne. This was a solid match. Ethan Page and Ricky Saints do pick up the victory, do some shenanigans. They end up getting a distraction from the ref. They end up having the championship. They end up recreating what happened at Vengeance Day with overthrowing the title. But eventually they end up using the title to their advantage. The ref was distracted. Ethan Page hits his finisher on the championship onto Joe Hendry, picks up the victory. Now, they're teasing something with Ethan Page and Ricky Saints because after they won, they're celebrating. Ethan Page keeps giving Ricky the side eye, and then Ricky Saints was concerned. He even gave him like a concerned look. They're clearly teasing something here, which I actually like. But my only concern is it a heel turn? Because they're both heels. So it's like, is Ricky just going to turn face again? That's the only thing I'm confused by. Now, I don't mind him turning face again because it kind of works because Joe Hendry's a face, Ricky Saints a face. Tony D'Angelo is a tweener, but he could play a baby face or heel, and then Ethan Page is a heel. So you can make it work. I'm just a bit confused because it's like, I do think the original plan for Stand and Deliver was Oba and Javon Evans. I do think that was the plan because I think they wanted someone to look strong for Javon, which was Ricky Saints to feud with Javon for a bit as a heel. But since Javon got called up a bit earlier than they probably expected, that kind of ruined plans. So I don't know what they're teasing here, but they're teasing something. I'm just going to be a bit confused whenever that does happen because if the plan is for Ethan to turn and betray Ricky, is Ricky a babyface or he's just going to be a heel who just got betrayed? So it's going to be very weird. But nonetheless, overall show, it was a really good show. Really solid show. I was very concerned for this show, to be honest with you, but this was a really good show. Really excited. The fact that this show was this good is very surprising to me, but I don't know why I'm keep being surprised that NXT continues to be the best weekly wrestling show. But you guys let me know your overall thoughts, opinions down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Make sure you hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of my content. But yeah, that's it.